How much power can one person really have? In the United States, even small actions can cascade into large consequences. So take a moment to stop and ask yourself, when was the last time I voted in a local election? In the 2020 presidential election, a record number of Americans rose above a global pandemic to cast their votes. But turnout rates all over the US have been laughably low for local elections for decades, the average reaching no more than 18% even in 2018. This is partly because a lot of people underestimate the power of local governments and the importance of their participation in them. This is something that must be changed. Local governments are incredibly important because they control how your community operates while setting possible examples for the rest of the country. Participation can be increased by increasing awareness through specialized canvassing and advertising, and by changing the dates of the elections to bring in more interest. Just to be clear, local governments cover counties or municipalities, which include cities, towns, and villages. According to frequent canvasser Andrew Vanderwedge, a lot of people don't know what positions are up for election. Think about this yourself. Did you know that local elections included ballots for sheriffs? How about prosecutors? Trial court judges? Coroners? It goes beyond just the mayor and the city council. Think if you know who any of these people are in your own hometown. It's this lack of knowledge that is so concerning. These are positions that shape what a community looks like, feels like, and what it is known for. The people holding these offices design policies on law enforcement, education, housing, budget, and more. If the roads get fixed or the park is renovated, the local government is responsible. Think about how much needed change in law enforcement could take place with the right leadership. How many communities feel alienated from their police force? How many people do you know that say the judicial system is broken? These leaders have the greatest influence on these institutions, and it is you that has the greatest impact on who those leaders are. Take Ed Gonzalez, a sheriff in Texas who has made significant reforms to the bail system in his county. Then compare him to people like Joe Arpaio, who spent his long tenure as sheriff implementing near-cruel tough-on-crime policies that did nothing but disenfranchise his community. This is all so important to individual communities, but it's also important for the entire country. Local governments are the jump-off point for new ideas and experimental policies, be it bail reform or different ways of managing property. If these experiments are successful, then they could spread to the rest of the country. For example, if crime rates significantly decrease in a county that applies incarceration reform, it is more likely that the rest of the country will try the same thing. This is how laws can go from cities, to states, to even the federal government. They are also breeding grounds for new leaders. People like Sheriff Ed Gonzalez or Senator Cory Booker, who began as a mayor in New Jersey, start off at the small, local level. These are the progressive voices that will be pushing America into the future. So local governments are clearly very important. This means that it's important that people hold local leaders accountable, but people often simply don't have the interest, the time, or the ability to vote. How can we fix that? The one thing everyone can agree on is that no one solution will be the magic bullet to dramatically increase voter turnout. So let's just start with engaging interest. There are actually a lot of things that can be done to engage a community in local elections, though it is probably also the greatest challenge. The first thing we need to do is change our canvassing strategies. Right now, a canvasser's job is to go from house to house of people who regularly vote and make sure they are voting for who they would usually vote for. This needs to change. A new strategy for canvassing that has been proven to increase voter turnout by over 15% is going to communities that have low voter turnouts, usually areas with lower economic and/or educational status, and simply pointing out their voting record in the past and then asking them if they plan on voting in the future. By adding this simple social pressure, people are more likely to go and vote because they get the feeling they have not been doing something that they should have. We can also add to this social pressure by using strategic advertising that puts the emphasis on the power of the voter. Posters on local transportation or banners on social media that say, "We need you to vote," or things like that. By appealing to the power of the voter, we can make them realize that they have a responsibility to use that power. What is most important is that these efforts do not come off as superior. People will only be alienated from participation if they feel canvassers or advertisers are judging them for not doing what they want them to do. The timing of elections is also highly important. Think about the relationship between national and local elections. National elections have greater perceived consequences, so setting local elections on a date that call attention to the relationship between these levels of government will match the consequences. Studies have been done that show that setting local elections before national elections will increase participation because people will see them as markers to which political party will win the national election. If the Democrats win the local election, they'll probably win the national election. The same is true if you set local elections on the same day as national elections. People are already at the ballots, so why not fill out a few extra bubbles? What should be avoided at all costs is local elections after the big national election. People are tired of politics and will not be eager to participate all over again. Another strategy that has been widely promoted is making election days holidays, as it will be easier for people to get out of work and take the time to go out and participate. But many people would cite a very important roadblock to participation in local elections: the fact that many times local officials run unopposed. Why bother participating when you don't actually have a choice? To this, I would say that the public eye is a very powerful tool. If more people pay attention to local elections, they will be viewed as more important. The media will write about them more, and more citizens will be inspired to put their hat in the ring. More enthusiasm begets more participation, making them more competitive. But low turnout nonetheless remains, and the outlook is only getting worse. Many lawmakers are adding restrictions to voting by making the process far more complicated and inaccessible. Voting is a right, but it is not to be taken for granted. This right is now being threatened, and we have to protect it while we still can. We need to vote for people that will get rid of these restrictions before it's too late. If we have the power to vote, we need to vote to keep that power. So here's where I turn to you. If you are old enough, register to vote if you haven't already. Then, use this link right here. It's also in the description. Follow it and type in your hometown. If there are any elections taking place in the near future, you should be able to see them. Everyone wants power, but no one wants responsibility. All of us have the responsibility to shape our future. The power to change the future of our country is in the palms of our hands. It is so easy to feel overwhelmed by all of the problems in the world right now. It is easy to take it all in at once and say there is no solution. It is easy to sit back in blissful ignorance or an act of fear and let society take its course. But if we are to guide this nation and the world into a brighter tomorrow, we have to start small, take one step at a time, and trust that our good intentions will spread.